Welcome back to the Monk Hunter, and in this special 6-video series, we're going to take a look at why this game is so much fun to play, and I use this word carefully, why we are actually addicted to playing it, and what the game is doing to make that addiction work for us and keep us engaged. Now, it's not that In-Death Unchained is an evil company, it's how video games work, especially role-playing games. So basically, let's take a look at our favorite little internal drug, dopamine. Now, I'm sure you are probably aware of already what dopamine is, but if you don't know what dopamine is, it's a neurotransmitter that our body produces, which is associated with wanting and desire. Now, this is a very high-level look, but it basically is the internal drug, if you will, that keeps us going, that keeps us wanting more. You can almost call it a carrot on the stick. And wherever that carrot goes, we want to go. Now, a game like In-Death is really good at constantly dangling this dopamine carrot in front of us, and this makes it somewhat addicting. And the thing that is built into RPG games as well is something that we call the Dopamine Trail. So essentially, IDU has a lot of different components that consistently trigger dopamine over and over again. This way we don't get bored and we want to continue playing. But the developers have to be careful that they don't overdo this dopamine release, or it could actually become so overwhelming for us and so addictive that we actually hate playing it because we have such a high playing it, and then we're always hit with these lows to basically balance out our prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. So today, let's look at the first key element in the dopamine trail and take a look at why this game is addictive, why all games are addictive, and maybe even a way that you can bring some of these techniques into your real life to make that life a little bit better and more interesting to live, kind of. Okay, so rule number 1 in the dopamine trail is there must be a clear objective to what you're working towards. In the case of In-Death, it's pretty clear. In Purgatory 1, we're after Anakim. Now, we know what our goal is, we know we have to get there, and we know we have to kill him. Otherwise, the whole game is meaningless if there isn't a big finish, a big finale to it, and then we move on to Paradise Lost and the Abyss and so on, and then we move into other levels. We are not so focused on just Anakim, otherwise the game would be boring. So what they do is they break it down into shorter sub-goals that lead up to that big moment, or for choice of better words, a lot of dopamine releases. Not big ones, but enough just to keep us happy and moving along. And you can see this perfectly in Purgatory 1. The first map is not too hard, and then the second map's a little harder. The third map gets even more difficult, and then they throw in an orphan, and then we finally get to meet Anakim. So we have a clear path on our direction to the goal of killing Anakim. An interesting note here is if you do roof hop, what happens is you're actually missing out on a lot of these dopamine hits. So although you feel satisfied a little bit that you took out Anakim, you've actually missed out the whole trail, so it's really not as satisfying. And then when you get really good at the level and you no longer are getting these senses of achievement and accomplishment that push the neurotransmitter into your body, you no longer get the hit. So for a player who can consistently play level 5 and above easily, level 1, there's nothing there. It's boring and they're not getting the dopamine hit that they need. But the truth is, the vast majority of the players in this game will never ever see level 5. So they are catering very much to the thousands of players who basically play in the first 3 levels. So that's basically it. Step 1, we need a determined goal. We need to know where we're going, but we need to have a path to get there that isn't too long, that isn't too short, and gives us the right amount of achievement and accomplishment, releasing the dopamine slowly into our brains until we get to the final chapter where we may or may not kill the big Anakim, but eventually we will, and when we do kill Anakim, because he's hard, boy, is that a rush of dopamine. Okay. So how do you turn this into your own life? Well, you've often heard that the destination is not as important as the journey. And it's true. Goals are important, but you really want to break anything you're doing into these little subsets so you get these little dopamine pushes as you go along. We don't want the big hit right off the bat. We want the little hits along the way. So that's episode 1 of the Dopamine Trail, and why you and I love this game so much, and also why, I don't want to use this word lightly, why we're addicted to playing it. And when the game becomes so boring that we're so good at it, we no longer get those dopamine hits and we move on to something else. All right, episode 2 tomorrow. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep on keeping on and enjoy light but steady, controllable and balanced dopamine hits.